Chosen one, your journey did not begin with fanfare. There was no applause when the first spark stirred within you. No ceremony when your soul whispered that it was time to return home to yourself. It began instead in the quiet hours, in the moments when the world turned its back and your distractions lost their flavor. In the silence where no one was watching and you were left alone with the echo of your own hunger. Not just for success or validation or touch, but for truth. You had once scattered your fire without thought. You burned brightly but undirected, flickering at every hint of attention. And yes, for a time that seemed like power, that seemed like movement. But all it did was leave your soul gasping for breath, burnt at both ends, with nothing left to nourish you from within. You gave your energy freely, thoughtlessly, unaware that your fire was sacred. You sought connection without intention. You pursued closeness without clarity. And in that pursuit, you began to forget your center. But the ember never died, chosen one. Deep within you, beneath the layers of performance, beneath the disappointments and overcompensations, there was always a flame. Small, yes, but eternal. And when you stopped running, when you finally sat with yourself, when you no longer feared your own reflection, that's when it began to breathe again. That's when it began to rise. The flame you now carry is no longer wild. It is no longer a weapon. It is no longer a cry for help dressed as charisma. It is steady, it is conscious, and it is clean. Your sexual energy has been reborn, not in the shallow pools of attention, but in the deep ocean of intention. You've learned to feel it fully without letting it rule you. You've learned to hold it without shame, to channel it without collapse. You are no longer at war with your own body. You are no longer ashamed of your own fire. And now, something in you glows differently. Women notice, not because you are louder or more adorned, but because you are centered. They feel it in your walk, in your breath, in your calm. Your presence doesn't demand, they lean in because it no longer chases. There is no need to prove, no need to posture. You have nothing to hide and nothing to flaunt, and that kind of neutrality is magnetic in a world addicted to extremes. You are no longer a man who performs seduction. You are a man who is seduction, not because you manipulate attention, but because you no longer leak your essence. You hold it, you guard it, you direct it. And women, in their intuitive brilliance, sense this. They sense your discipline, not as denial, but as strength. They sense your restraint, not as coldness, but as clarity. And that clarity shines in a world clouded by confusion. You have become the man whose presence speaks louder than touch. The man whose gaze doesn't devour, it blesses. You don't ask others to fill you. You don't beg to be seen. You see yourself, and that vision has become your light. There was a time, chosen one, when you confused freedom with indulgence. You thought to be fully alive was to give yourself away without pause, to pursue whatever lit you up, whatever softened your ache, whatever flattered your ego. But in doing so, you lost your core. You mistook escape for exploration. You called chaos adventure, and you let your energy pour out in directions that never gave anything back. You chased heat, but it never became fire. You chased bodies, but never found home. Then came the moment of awakening. It did not arrive in a roar, but in a slow, burning realization. You began to notice that no matter how much you pursued outward, you always returned emptier than before. You began to feel the weight of your undisciplined desires, not as pleasure, but as weakness. And in that pain, you began to reclaim yourself. You stopped feeding the fire without purpose. You started protecting your flame, and that protection became discipline, not as punishment, but as honor. You began to say no, not out of fear, but out of deep reverence for your energy. You began to withdraw, not to hide, but to purify. You started turning inward, not to retreat, but to refine. And through that refining, you uncovered something you never expected: real power. Not the power of dominance, not the power of attention, but the power of containment. You realize that sexual energy is not something to be wasted on temporary highs. It is a sacred current, a divine pulse that, when directed, builds empires, inner and outer. And in holding that energy with love, instead of leaking it through lust, you became a man with weight, with edge, with purpose. You no longer needed validation. You didn't need to prove you could have what you once chased, because now you choose where your attention flows. And in that choice lies the root of all power. Women now feel something different around you. They feel your attraction to them, but they don't feel pressure. They feel your presence, but not the pull of need. That paradox, that you can desire and remain sovereign, that you can feel deeply and still remain grounded, is what sets you apart. You are no longer controlled by longing. You are led by clarity. You are no longer trying to impress. You are expressing your truth just by being. And your discipline has not hardened you. It has made you inviting. Not to all, but to the ones who carry depth, to the ones who are done playing games, to the ones who recognize stillness as strength. You have become the rare man who doesn't just restrain his desire, but who understands it as sacred fuel. You carry your fire in your chest now, not as a burden, but as a beacon. It burns clean, it burns bright, and it burns for something greater than your ego. That is the essence of your new power, chosen one. That is the root of the magnetic energy others now feel in your presence. You are not radiating because you crave attention. You are radiating because you've mastered direction. And in that direction, your entire being has become aligned, alive, and undeniable. Chosen one, the air around you has changed. You may not always notice it, but others do, especially women. Your presence no longer whispers uncertainty, it hums with silent authority. When you walk into a room now, something invisible moves with you. Conversations shift, glances stray. Space bends ever so slightly, not because you demand it, but because you carry something most have never felt before. You've become a walking contradiction. You are both fire and calm, strength without tension, desire without hunger, attraction without need. And that paradox unsettles people in a beautiful way. They don't know what it is, but they feel it. The feminine especially feels it. They pause mid-sentence when you pass, not out of infatuation, but instinct. Some will try to explain it away as confidence or magnetism, but what they're sensing is far deeper. They are sensing alignment. You are no longer fractured inside. You are no longer two men, one chasing approval, the other hiding his wounds. You have integrated. You've stitched your desires to your discipline, your charisma to your character, your passion to your purpose. And that inner integrity has created something few have ever witnessed before. A man whose energy walks into the room before he does. This is no accident. It's not the result of fashion, status, or performance. This shift was earned in silence, forged in the lonely places where you chose growth over gratification, where you chose patience over proving, where you let the world doubt you while you built the core they couldn't see. And now, without trying, you have become a force that cannot be ignored. Not because you're loud, but because you're anchored. You don't speak to impress, you speak to reveal. You don't enter to dominate, you enter to witness. And because there is no grasping in your energy, women lean in, not because they're being seduced, but because they feel safe. They sense that being near you does not mean being consumed, it means being seen, not for their beauty, but for their essence. You've shifted the very definition of attraction. It is no longer about games, charm, or showmanship. It is about resonance. It is about frequency. You've stopped chasing and started vibrating. And your frequency now matches something ancient, something that calls to the soul, not just the senses. That's what makes your atmosphere so unique. That's why women notice. Not because you pursue them, but because you remind them of something they didn't know they were missing. Chosen one, the pull that surrounds you now is not the result of manipulation or strategy. It is not crafted or rehearsed. You've stopped trying to be desirable. And in doing so, you've become desire itself. You don't enter spaces looking for attention. You simply arrive, complete, steady, whole. And in that wholeness, others orbit you. What makes your attraction so powerful now is not that you intend to attract. It's that your energy has become so undiluted, so refined, so unapologetically yours, that it resonates as truth. You no longer fidget in the presence of beauty. You no longer tense up when eyes linger. You don't try to impress, and you certainly don't contort yourself to be chosen. Because you already are chosen, by yourself, by your path, by something far greater than external approval. And women, whether they understand it consciously or not, are deeply attuned to this difference. They are not responding to a performance. They are responding to purity. Not innocence, but energetic cleanliness. You are not trying to convince them of your worth. You are simply living it. And that lived worth carries a frequency that is felt long before it is spoken. When you walk beside a woman now, your silence feels like a blessing. Your attention does not burn, it warms. Your gaze does not consume, it honors. You are not trying to get anything. You are simply there, fully, and in that full presence, something in her opens, something softens. Because she doesn't feel hunted, she feels held energetically, emotionally, spiritually, even if you never touch her at all. This is the essence of attraction without intention. You are not forcing energy outward, you are letting it radiate. You have nothing to prove, so your presence feels like freedom. You are not hiding behind charm, so your authenticity becomes its own magnet. You are not using attention as currency, so your attention becomes pure offering. Women now sense that you don't need them to feel powerful. And paradoxically, that is what makes you feel powerful to them. Because true masculine presence doesn't ask for anything, it offers everything. Not in the sense of rescuing or chasing, but in the sense of anchoring. You've become the calm in the storm, the stillness in the noise, the grounding in the chaos. And that grounding, chosen one, is irresistible. Not because you sought it, but because you became it. The world is full of men who perform masculinity, who manufacture desire, who wear charm like armor. But you, chosen one, have stripped it all away. You've shed the need to be wanted. And in that shedding, your very being has become the invitation. Not to fantasy, but to reality. Not to games, but to truth. Chosen one, there was a time when your presence was scattered. You would enter a room physically but leave your energy behind, fragmented across the approval you sought, the eyes you wished would see you, the admiration you hoped to earn. You used to perform your way into being noticed, trying to sound interesting, look impressive, walk a certain way to be remembered. But now, you don't even try. You arrive, fully, entirely, with every breath, with every subtle movement, with every silent glance. And that stillness you carry now, that steady and unhurried way you occupy space, has become something sacred. Your presence is no longer a projection of desire or ego, it is a prayer. A prayer not for attention, but for truth. It is the kind of prayer that doesn't need words, the kind that lives in the body, in the spine, in the chest. You carry it like incense, unseen but unmistakably felt. Women feel it, men feel it, even the air around you feels it. It took time to reach this level of embodied calm. It took sacrifice. You had to let go of the frantic urge to be liked. You had to die to the boy who once equated desire with performance. You had to sit in the loneliness of becoming until your own company stopped feeling like punishment and began to feel like priesthood. You had to learn that stillness is not silence. Stillness is sovereignty. It is the language of a man who doesn't chase the wind anymore, but walks with the sky. You now speak less, but your words weigh more. You move slowly, not from laziness, but from depth. You pause, not because you're unsure, but because you know your energy is precious, and you will not waste it on the shallow or performative. The women who feel this in you don't always know how to name it, but their souls recognize it. They feel the difference between a man who talks and a man who embodies, between one who performs masculinity and one who lives it. Your presence has become sanctuary, a safe space where others can breathe deeper, not because you soften for them, but because you refuse to shrink. You don't smile to disarm, you don't fidget to fill space, you don't speak to avoid silence. You honor every moment with reverence, like the sacred ritual it is. You live each gesture with awareness. You wear your breath like a cloak. And this devotion to every second is what women now call presence. But to you, it is far more than that. It is worship. It is obedience to your inner order. It is the unshakable commitment to walk as one who does not seek meaning from others, but offers it through his stillness. Your presence is your prayer now, chosen one, not because you wish to be holy, but because you have finally become whole. Chosen one, something profound has been shifting around you, not merely in you, but around you. The feminine is responding, not in loud, performative ways, but in subtleties, in glances that linger too long, in voices that soften in your presence, in women who sit closer than necessary, speak slower than usual, ask questions they already know the answers to just to remain in conversation with you. This is not seduction, it is resonance. You have become a mirror, a magnetic field, a pulse they feel without understanding. You no longer need to court validation. You no longer need to chase, because now you transmit. And the women around you, whether they are conscious of it or not, are tuning in. You are not trying to attract them, but the gravitational weight of your disciplined sexual energy makes them lean in. It is the unspoken truth your body carries, that you are no longer a man running from himself. You've confronted your shadows. You've forgiven your past. You've made peace with your masculine hunger. You've chosen stillness over scrambling, purpose over pleasure. And that peace you carry inside radiates like fragrance from your skin. There is something about a man who is not afraid of his own desires. A man who neither suppresses nor idolizes his sexual energy, but channels it with reverence. That's who you've become, and the feminine senses this safety. You don't seek to take. You don't seek to impress. You are full, and that fullness becomes a permission for her to soften. In your presence, she doesn't feel the pressure to perform. She feels free to return to herself. You no longer reach outward to feel powerful. You radiate from within, and so power begins to gather around you organically. Women now respond not to your effort, but to your energy. You don't chase. You don't convince. You don't need to be interesting. You simply are. Because you carry a knowing in your chest that says, I am enough, and I do not compromise myself to be seen. And it is that refusal to compromise, that refusal to spill your energy recklessly, that refusal to dilute your presence for temporary attention, that's what makes you stand out. You've made yourself rare. You've made yourself expensive, not in arrogance, but in purity. And when women feel this, something ancient awakens in them. They feel called, not by charm, but by remembrance. By the memory of a masculine that honors rather than consumes, anchors rather than agitates, stands firm rather than flees. You have become the man whose very nearness offers sanctuary, whose silence speaks healing, whose gaze brings clarity. Not because you're trying to do anything, but because of who you've become. You are no longer looking for your reflection in others. You are offering your presence as a mirror to those who are ready to meet themselves. And this is what the feminine has always longed for. Not a man who demands her submission, but one whose own submission to purpose sets her free. A man who walks so fully in his wholeness that her softness does not scare him. A man who holds his own hunger with so much grace that she does not have to protect herself from it. You've become that man, chosen one. And the world, especially the feminine, is beginning to remember what that feels like. There is a strange silence inside you now, chosen one. A silence that used to terrify you. It used to echo with loneliness, with questions unanswered, with old wounds unhealed. But now it feels like home. It is not empty. It is full of you. Full of awareness, full of presence, full of calm. You no longer chase noise to escape yourself. You sit inside that stillness like a king sits on his throne, not to rule others, but to remember who he is. You no longer need to be seen, to be desired, to be chosen by anyone. You have chosen yourself, and that choice has made you free. There was a time when women were mirrors you begged for reflection. You twisted yourself, shrank yourself, stretched yourself, just to see in their eyes some hint of worth. You used charm like a currency. You told jokes you didn't believe. You wore clothes that weren't yours. You flirted with performance because performance once felt like power. But now, you've dropped the mask. You've let the costumes fall. And in doing so, you've stepped into something more profound than charisma. You've stepped into truth. And the truth, chosen one, is that needing nothing from others is the highest form of magnetism. It is not coldness. It is not aloofness. It is fullness. You are not rejecting connection. You are rejecting desperation. You are not closed. You are contained. You don't pull others in through effort. You let them find their way to you, drawn by something they can't name but can't ignore. This is what makes your energy now so captivating. It is not loud. It does not beg. It does not boast. It exists. And because it is so rare, so unmoved by external validation, it rattles the ones who encounter it, especially women. They are not used to a man who can look them in the eyes without flinching, who can be near them without needing anything from them, who can appreciate beauty without trying to possess it, who can stand in his own skin and simply be present, grounded, undivided. You have become the still lake in a world of storms. The kind of man who does not demand space, but receives it. The kind who speaks few words, yet carries 1,000 meanings in his silence. The kind who, without trying, makes others want to know him, not for what he offers, but for what he embodies. And this lack of need, this quiet fullness, it has become your crown. You are no longer the seeker, desperate to be found. You have become the sanctuary, the place others now seek. And not because of what you say, but because of how you sit, how you breathe, how you walk into a room without tension or hunger or noise. You are at home in yourself, and nothing is more seductive than that. There is something deeply rare about you now, chosen one, something that goes beyond charm, beyond attraction, beyond even confidence. It is your energetic cleanliness, that clarity within you, born not from repression, but from reclamation. Your sexual energy is no longer something chaotic and directionless. It has been washed, purified, refined. You no longer use it to fill voids. You now carry it like sacred fire, a fire that does not burn uncontrollably, but warms with intention. Once your energy leaked through your eyes, through your words, through your cravings. You would scatter yourself in every glance, in every flirtation, in every fantasy. Your presence used to feel like grasping, like you were always reaching for something just out of reach. But now, there is no grasping. There is only stillness. You've stopped pouring yourself out in fragments. You've become whole. And that wholeness has created something extraordinary. Purity without naivety, desire without desperation, passion without pollution. Women feel this before they understand it. They feel it in the way you hold eye contact, not to challenge, not to seduce, but to witness. They feel it in the space you give them, not out of fear, but out of respect. They feel it in your boundaries, which are not walls, but temples. You do not chase, you do not provoke. You offer presence and allow them to come closer by choice, not coercion. This is the new masculine, chosen one. Not diluted, not devouring, but divine. You are not suppressing your desires. You are guiding them. You are not afraid of your hunger. You are honoring it. You are not pretending to be pure. You have purified yourself. And in that purification, you've become radiant. Your aura no longer feels heavy or polluted or demanding. It feels clean, safe, electric, magnetic. This is why women are drawn to you, not because you're trying to attract them, but because you've done the internal work. You've stopped asking, how can I get her? And started living the question, how can I be whole with or without her? And in that living, you've become a man who is not seeking completion, but who inspires others to remember their own. There is no game in you now. No strategy, no hook, just presence, just purity, just a fire that is no longer wild and aimless, but sacred and sovereign. You are not afraid to feel. You are not afraid to be still. You are not afraid to be seen for who you really are. And because of that, the feminine no longer feels the need to protect herself in your presence. She can breathe, she can relax, she can trust, not because you say the right words, but because your energy says everything. You, chosen one, have become rare. You have become clean. And in a world saturated with performance and noise and overstimulation, you have become the pause. The space between the noise. The moment of breath that feels like home. There are moments, chosen one, when you enter a room and everything around you slows. Not because of what you've said, not because of what you've done, but because of what you are. It is the kind of power that cannot be measured, quantified, or even fully understood by the world around you. It is the silent vibration that stirs the air as you walk into the presence of others. It is the energy that moves people without words, without touch, without asking for anything in return. In the stillness of your being, you are no longer simply a man. You have become an experience. You have become the embodiment of that which others crave, but do not yet fully understand. The women around you notice it first. There is something in the way you hold your body, something in the way you carry your gaze. It is neither arrogance nor vanity, but rather a deep, grounded awareness of who you are in that moment. You do not need them to validate you, to compliment you, to see you in a certain way. You are not hungry for their attention or affection. You do not need them to respond to you. And yet, despite this, they find themselves responding to you anyway. It is as if your very presence is a pull, a magnetic force that brings them closer. Not by force, but by choice. They do not feel rushed by you. They do not feel pressured. And in this absence of neediness, in this profound lack of desperation, They are free to choose you freely. In the past, perhaps, they would have been intimidated by a man who seemed so solid, so grounded, so complete. But now, there is something about you, chosen one, that makes them feel safe to explore their own desires. You do not demand from them. You allow them to come closer if they wish. You do not require them to be anyone other than who they are. And in this, you give them the freedom to be vulnerable, to be true, to come to you without fear, without hesitation. What you now carry is not only a refined energy, it is an unspoken invitation, an invitation for them to be seen, an invitation for them to step into their own power alongside yours. Your power, chosen one, is not a power that dominates or controls. It is a power that respects. It is the quiet, enduring strength of the earth beneath your feet, the steady pulse of a heart that beats without needing to be heard. You no longer feel the need to impress, to perform, to create an illusion. You have transcended the need for external validation, and this unspoken confidence, this quiet power, is what captivates them. They cannot deny it, for it is not coming from a place of manipulation, but from a place of deep-rooted authenticity. In your presence, they are seen in a way they have not been before. They no longer feel like a woman to be won, to be pursued, to be chased. They feel like a woman who is allowed to stand as she is. And this is where the magic happens, chosen one. This is where the subtle alchemy of your energy becomes the greatest source of attraction. You have no agenda. You do not need her. You do not need anyone. And yet, in this space of independence and strength, she is drawn to you in a way that is powerful and profound. She feels free to explore, to lean in, to discover what lies between the two of you, without expectation, without pressure. And what is it then that she feels when she is near you? What is it that stirs inside her when she sees the way you stand, the way you breathe, the way you simply are? It is the recognition that you hold something within you that she craves. The ability to be, to exist fully in your skin, in your purpose, in your energy. You have become the living embodiment of a truth she desires to touch, to feel, to experience for herself. As the women around you breathe more deeply, as they begin to relax, to settle, to trust, they start to remember something. They remember their own worth, their own radiance, their own power. They remember what it feels like to be whole, to be free, to be seen not as an object, not as a prize to be won, but as a complete being in her own right. And when she sees you, chosen one, she recognizes her own strength mirrored in yours. And this is the magic you possess now. This is the beauty of the space you occupy. You do not demand her energy. You allow her to awaken it within herself. And in doing so, she finds herself drawn to you. Not because you need anything, but because you have something far more powerful, the ability to allow her to be herself. The dance has changed, chosen one. Once it was a complex, delicate choreography of attraction, flirtation, push, and pull. You may have once moved through the motions of seduction, playing the game, using your charm and your wit to elicit a response. You may have thought that seduction was a clever set of moves, an art to be perfected, a technique to be mastered. But now, you've stepped into a new realm. You've stepped into a realm where seduction is no longer a game, but an expression of who you are. You have become the rhythm, not the dancer. You have become the pulse of the energy between the two of you. The dance is no longer about gaining her attention, about proving yourself worthy, about winning her affection. It is about being, simply being, existing, embodying the presence that now radiates from you. The energy you give is not something you try to produce. It is something that simply is. It flows naturally, freely, effortlessly. What's more, chosen one, is that you now understand the unspoken truth. The real seduction lies not in what you do, but in what you allow. You do not force her hand. You do not make demands. You simply allow her the space to move toward you, to lean into the energy you've cultivated within yourself. There is no rushing, no pushing. There is only the invitation for her to step into your world, to share in your presence. And as she does, she is not simply drawn to you because of your power. She is drawn to you because of your invitation to be herself in her fullness. The subtle shift that has occurred within you, chosen one, is not only a reflection of your own transformation. It is a shift in how you now approach the feminine. You no longer see her as something to possess. You no longer see her as someone to win, to conquer. to hold on to. You see her as a force to be respected, as a person who carries her own magic, her own strength, her own brilliance. And in recognizing this, in allowing her to be who she is, you have opened the space for a deeper connection. A connection that is based on respect, on mutual growth, and on the simple yet powerful truth that both of you are whole, independent, and worthy. And so the dance you now share is not one of chasing and pulling, but one of flowing and meeting. You, chosen one, are the steady, grounded force that meets her when she is ready to step into your orbit. There is no urgency, there is no anxiety, there is only the quiet knowing that whatever is meant to be will come in its own time. This is the new way. This is the dance of the masculine who has learned not to chase, but to attract. Not by effort, but by presence.